Mid-air collisions still happen today. They're most likely going to happen on a VFR weekend. This is because VFR weather brings out all sorts of pilots, pilots that don't have a IFR rating. Also on the weekend warriors, you have the people that's working all week. They don't, fly during the week. They just have it for personal pleasure, and so they fly during the weekend. So also the weekend is very populated as well with planes. So, and the most traffic accidents would happen between 5 nautical miles within an airport or a VOR or an airway. This is because all the planes are usually converging at those areas, especially if they're using VOR navigation or if they're just going to an airport, especially an uncontrolled airport. Uncontrolled airports can be very busy, especially with training aircraft or people practicing in the pattern. And there are very busy uncontrolled airports out there, so it's very important to stay vigilant, looking for other airplanes in the traffic pattern and entering the traffic pattern correctly, not trying to jump over people, especially paying attention on the final approach, making sure no one else is on the final approach or using an opposite runway. So those are all good ways for people to get in accidents. Technology has improved. This is between both radar with ATCs and inside the planes. Nowadays, especially with more advanced planes, they have TCAS, which can be looking out for traffic, which shows their altitude and what direction they're flying in. So that's a big help. With planes that do have that, or planes with ADS-B in and out, with the G1000 that can show traffic inside the cockpit, so you're not just relying on ATC if you are using ATC, but you can also see traffic inside the cockpit to give you more vigilance outside instead of just looking with your eyes. The other big thing you can use is flight following. This is a big one with VFR and obviously IFR. Even if you're just VFR, it's always a good idea to get flight following just because ATC can help you out with traffic. It can be very difficult to see traffic just looking outside the cockpit yourself. Those planes can be hiding all over the place, from behind you, underneath you, above you. So using VFR flight following is definitely a big help. Also, we can use is apps. So the technology that's coming out today, like ForeFlight, you can use Sentry and Stratus with ForeFlight. That can give you some traffic if you don't have anything inside your cockpit to help you with traffic. That can be a little thing you can use for traffic. And but you should always rely on not just what you have technology, but you have to rely on looking out the window. That's the most important thing. It's not looking at your iPad or messing with the G1000 or having a conversation with, if you're carrying passengers. You just have to stay vigilant, looking outside the cockpit window most majority of your flight. And the other thing is that don't rely on other people and what they're going to do, even if you're in the right of way. So for instance, like a couple nights ago, I was doing a night flight, building some night hours, and my airport is a Class Delta airport. It's just actually a pretty busy Class Delta airport. And when the airport closes, it goes into Class Echo uncontrolled. And when I was coming in on final, and I did my reports 10 mile, I did 6 mile, and when I did my 3 mile into final, which I was landing, we had 2 runways, which they cross each other. I was landing into the wind. It was about 10 knot wind, so I was landing the correct runway. And on 3 mile final, another aircraft came on the radio and said he was on the final as well, but for the crossing runway. So I looked over to my left. I did see him. I made another final call. At that point, I was about 2 mile final, but he didn't say anything or even acknowledge me that I was in the on final as well. So I made a decision to cut away. I did not land, and I continued to watch the aircraft where he landed in front of me. And if I continued my approach and landed, it was a good possibility that we would have collided or the runway is intercepted. So just because if you have the right of way doesn't mean you should continue flying. It's always the best to make the judgment call and to play it safe.